Steve Cropley flies to Yorkshire to test the new range of AMG sports cars. And we visit Lotus in Norfolk to drive the old and new Elan and the latest Esprit. For over a decade, the family motorist needing space and versatility has had two choices, an estate car or the Renault Espace. The Espace has had the people carrier market pretty well sewn up until now. Peugeot is taking a tilt at the Espace with this, the 806. Ford has jumped on the bandwagon with this, the Galaxie. The Espace turned family motoring on its head. Why did the kids have to squeeze up like sardines? Why couldn't they have as much room as you? Why couldn't you turn your car into a bedroom, a sitting room, an office or a ballroom, or just a plain workaday estate? The Espace is whatever you want it to be and offers as much space as you are ever likely to need. And while it may look like a slippery van, the Espace drives like a softly sprung saloon. But it isn't just storage boxes and fold-up tables that these cars offer. It's a panoramic view, comfort, and all the room you need for a genuine family day out. But after over a decade, the Espace was starting to look a little tired. Time, perhaps, for something different. The 806, fantastic. A people carrier with sliding doors, which makes getting in and out so easy, and a gear shift off the floor, which frees up more cabin space. But it's a pity that design inspiration hasn't been used to lighten up the interior, which is more businessman than family man. The Peugeot 806 picks up where the Espace leaves off. It offers some useful refinements that'll appeal to families, but it's hardly groundbreaking. However, for passengers, the top-of-the-range model offers a host of useful extras from CD player to underseat trays and cup holders. And the driver isn't forgotten. The 806's handling is sharp, the ride less roly-poly than the Espace, and the benefits of a high driving position remain undisturbed. So, can the Ford Galaxie raise the stakes even higher? Just look at it in here. Wraparound trim, plumb driving position, car-like fascia. Ford has rounded off the Espace's edges and produced a people carrier dyed-in-the-wool saloon drivers will love. The Galaxie's curvy interior offers pretty much the same seating permutations as the Espace and 806. But there are some nice details, such as aircraft-style meal trays and power outlets for your fridge or computer game. But the Galaxie storms ahead of its rivals with a mix of car-like handling, pin-sharp steering and fine body control. Its ace card, however, is a low-slung driving position. In a Galaxie, drivers need no longer feel as if they're piloting a small delivery van. So which one to buy? I'd buy this one, the Ford Galaxie. But when all's said and done, the Espace is such a good people carrier that the 806 and Galaxie can only be a variation on a theme. Remember, when you're buying an MPV, you're not buying a vehicle, you're buying a lifestyle.
The hardest thing about testing cars is finding a place to test them. And the faster the car, the tougher the search. Sometimes you have to go halfway across England to find the right circuit. And that's what we're doing today. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. We're about to leave the southeast of London, bound for Yorkshire. We've flown up here from London to the site of the Yorkshire Aircraft Museum, where there's also a very large car proving ground. And we're going to test a whole range of AMG modified Mercedes cars, just like this one here, C36, this one. Not one of these cars does less than 140 miles an hour, but better than that, they all handle brilliantly, and I'm going to show you. These are the most powerful Mercs on offer and the most exclusive. They may look familiar, but when it comes to performance, they're in a different class entirely. So what is it about an AMG Mercedes? Well, what it means is that the standard Mercedes-Benz is taken hold of by AMG, a company heavily associated with Mercedes-Benz themselves, but independent. And it does a lot of things, improves the engine, stiffens the suspension, gives the car the sort of responses that a very sporting driver will want to have in his car. This one here is a really seductive combination of luxury car and a performance car. It's very tidy on the road, it doesn't roll much, very responsive to the steering, stable. It corners terribly well. We're going around a bit fast here. And yet, when it hits bumps like we're about to, it still feels very good. You may be one of the people wondering why one would drive a car like this on the limit. The whole point of it, from my point of view, is that somebody sooner or later will find the limit in a car like this, because be it a lady with a carload of kids in a downhill bend covered with diesel on the way home from school. And it is important to know how a car behaves on the limit, and that's what we're doing. This whole event was organised by Paul Ripley. He took me out to demonstrate how an AMG Merc behaves when it's right on the ragged edge.
Okay, coming towards the slalom now, 25-metre gate spacings. He's going to try and unsettle the car between the second and third gate. So turning in now, lifting off, get the back of the car sliding. I'm just anticipating what the car's going to do when I'm lifting off the power, as a normal driver would, going into a bend too fast. Really on the limit stuff, that. Looking at basically the chassis, balancing in and out, going in and out, and basically the ride, handling, etc. Car's going to understeer and oversteer, which is a front wheel and rear wheel skid. I'm basically showing what the chassis does and how it's coping with it, along with the Bridgestone tyres. Let's fit it to the car. So at the moment we're going to go through what they call staggered gate exercises, and this is really taking the car to its absolute limit. So we're going through now, turning in, lifting off the power, getting the back end to come round, straight back on the power now, lifting off the power again to get the help the steering angle, off again, full power, and opposite lock at the same time.
Why do you think it's necessary to test cars like this?
I think basically, in the extreme of conditions for normal drivers on the road, it's important that cars are tested to this limit and basically see how the car handles, see if it can be improved or you know, different ride height, different suspension settings, different tyre makeups. And at the end of the day, it really is a good balance as this car.
To make the best of a top-quality chassis, you need decent tyres too. Luckily, Bridgestone were on hand with their latest Expedia range, and there was plenty for their fitters to do all day. Airfield test tracks like this one at Elvington are notoriously tough on tyres. But there was one man who was tougher on tyres than any of us, Dario Franchitti, Scottish-born Mercedes works driver, currently making his mark in the German Touring Car Championship. He was practically eating rubber for breakfast.
It's not that the other tyre, Dari said they wanted snaps with it, more gradual.
After the tyre conference, I grabbed Dario for a quick chat about the AMG flagship, the SL60. I know that Mercedes-Benz is a big name in your life because you drive their cars, but am I right in thinking this is an unusually controllable car for its capabilities?
Yeah, I mean the car understeers slightly, which is exactly what you want out of a high-performance car. If it's a bit twitchy on the limit and oversteer, it can be very dangerous. To make this car oversteer, I had to work very, very hard, using all sorts of strange techniques to do it. But
Did it well, though?
It had a good effect, and it was, you know, it was so controllable. I was using one hand at points to get the thing to slide. It's really a nice, even slide, and it doesn't snap in any way. It's good.
You're here on a journalist's day demonstrating the car. Your real job is as a racing driver. Can you put up with this kind of stuff? Do you mind it?
I'm having good fun. This is the first time I've driven the SL, and to drive the SL60 is something special because it has all the power. And it looks the absolute business. I'm going to borrow this car for a week afterwards and take it up to Scotland. But
I hope you're going to get it some new tyres, huh?
I think it needs some new tyres first, yep.
Well, the day's over. and here we are driving home. And look what I've won. A brand new, red, gleaming AMG Mercedes C36. Can't be bad, can it? But what have we learned from today? Two things stand out for me. One is the fact that this performance car, 140-mile-an-hour car, is so benign, so controllable, so easy for an ordinary driver to deal with, right on the limit. You've seen it driven as fast as it will go. Second thing is durability. AMG has put a veneer of performance on this car but without damaging the reliability, the durability in any way. This car has been thrashed into the ground by experts for some days, and by rights it should be groaning. But we're cruising quietly home down the M1, and there isn't a squeak or a rattle in it. And I know that if I were to stop, it would idle like a Swiss watch. Those two things, safe high-speed handling and extreme durability, are what really count for a performance car.
Coming up after the break, we find out how a newly developed tyre could save you money. And Lotus's senior test driver hits the... High temperatures make pollution worse as fumes from cars rise and with other pollutants combine to create smog. But one way to reduce vehicle emissions comes courtesy of tyre manufacturer Michelin. It has brought out a tyre with a lower rolling resistance than a standard tyre. Simply put, the tyre will travel further per litre of petrol, improving fuel consumption by about 5% and reducing the amount of exhaust entering the atmosphere. To understand how the Michelin low rolling resistant tyre works, we need to understand the various forces a moving vehicle encounters. There is resistance due to aerodynamic drag, and there is internal friction between parts, such as the transmission, causing energy loss. In addition, there are rolling resistance forces arising from the contact of the tyre with the road. These forces account for about 20% of the total resistance encountered by a moving vehicle at 100 kilometers per hour. Many characteristics of the tyre have an effect on rolling resistance, such as slip within the contact patch, pressure or sidewall deformation. Such factors bring about a loss of energy known as rolling resistance. Any reduction of resistance will cause a decrease in fuel consumption. We asked Michelin to demonstrate the tyre and show that rolling resistance, if it's lowered, will have an effect on the fuel consumption of the vehicle. Two identical models, one red, one silver, are fitted with different tyres. The red car is on standard tyres known as black higher rolling resistant tyres, and the silver car is on the new green lower rolling resistant tyre. With the engine off, the car out of gear and with only a driver in the car to direct it through the markings, the car is run down the ramp and allowed to freewheel to a stop. When the car has come to a complete standstill, the distance the car has rolled is measured and recorded. Each car is run twice with its set of tyres. Next, the silver car is lined up in exactly the same position on the ramp and released. It is allowed to free roll down the ramp and come to a standstill. Its distance is also recorded.
33.2.
Check 33.2.
Then, to rule out any differences between the cars, be it weight or mechanical friction within the bearings, the tyres are then swapped over, so the red car will be on the low rolling resistant tyres and the silver car on the higher rolling resistant or standard tyres. The tyres are again checked to make sure they both have similar pressures. The test is then repeated. The silver car, now on the higher rolling resistance standard tyres, runs a shorter distance than when it was on the higher rolling resistance tyres. It stops just after the 25-metre mark. The red car, now on the new tyres, clearly runs further, passing the sign where the silver car stopped and going several metres further. The results of all the tyres are then recorded, and the plus distances, the difference in distance each car ran on the different sets of tyres, also worked out. Then a percentage calculation of the differences in distance travelled is worked out and recorded. Finally, the average percentage of the difference in distance is calculated.
We've now completed the tests, and we can see from the figures here that the car, when fitted with low rolling resistance energy tyres, travelled much further. In fact, on average, nearly 28% further. That means that the average motorist will get somewhere in the region of 5% at least improvement in his fuel consumption.
So it now seems that even changing your tyres can help you not only save money, but help save the environment as well. UK police have a new weapon to combat bad or dangerous driving on motorways.
It's drivers like these, according to police, who are committing the most common offence on Britain's motorways, lane hogging. They say motorists who refuse to pull over and let other traffic pass are responsible for the stress and frustration which leads to serious accidents.
People are staying in the middle lane and traffic builds up behind them, and somebody brakes suddenly and all of a sudden you've got a shunt-type accident which results in very often some quite serious injuries.
Now, 6 Midlands police forces have launched a campaign to combat lane hogging and other bad habits amongst motorway drivers. Patrol cars are being fitted with electronic signs which will give instructions to motorists who are driving badly. Here, on the M5 in Worcestershire, traffic police are able to make a driver pull over and use the near side lane. The system can be programmed to relay any message to motorists. It's not just lane hoggers who are being targeted in this campaign. If you drive using a mobile phone which isn't hands-free, you're likely to get a gentle reminder that you are breaking the law. Dangerous drivers will still be prosecuted, but police hope this new scheme will encourage a higher standard of motorway driving.
This is the famous Lotus factory just outside the sleepy village of Hethel in Norfolk. In 1966, Colin Chapman, the company's charismatic founder, moved the works here from London, partly because he was looking for more space, but also because he realised there was a 2.5-mile stretch of disused airfield going cheap. Alistair McQueen is Lotus's senior test driver and has been responsible for developing some of the finest drivers' cars ever. Today he's here to talk us through 3 cars: the Esprit S4S, the Series 1 Elan, and the Elan S2. This is the Series 1 Elan. Not the first ever Lotus, but certainly one of the best. In its day, it could outrun many a supercar down a twisty lane, and even now, 33 years after its birth, it's still a pretty spectacular drive.
Well, it's nice to be reacquainted with the Series 1 Elan after many years. This particular car is over 25 years old, and first impressions are of its lightness and nimbleness. Very good ride. Nice to have a gear change which goes straight into the gearbox. The cornering capability, just as I remember, very precise, nice and linear, one steering input for the corner. The car maintains its line, no deviation at all. The cockpit feels quite small, but the driver very much feels part of the car. There's no feeling of floating around inside. I think even with the car this age, it would show up many more modern cars in its ride and handling characteristics, its steering, but also, most importantly, its pleasure in driving.
This car, the new Elan, represented something of a hiccup for Lotus. Though it was as quick as anything point to point, its complex front-wheel drive chassis was expensive to make and not as much fun as its predecessor to drive. Even so, city types loved it, so much so that Lotus made this version, the S2.
It differs from the Series 1 Elan in that it's transverse front-engine, front-wheel drive car. Immediately it feels a heavier car, more firmer ride, much quieter, both engine noise and exhaust note. It feels, from a steering point of view, very similar to the original Elan. Very precise, responsive, and dedicated in cornering, where the single steering wheel input generates a dedicated line from the car. The gear lever operation is very light, but not so precise, and with the same connection feeling that the S1 Elan gives with its lever straight into the gearbox. Also, the car feels more spacious inside, a little bit more elbow room. It shows the same character, though, even though this car is some 25 years newer than the S1 Elan. It still retains this pleasure in driving, this integration of the driver with the car.
The Esprit has been Lotus's mainstay since it was launched some 20 years ago, and one look at this S4S version and you can see why. With an 0 to 60 of comfortably under 5 seconds, the 285 horsepower S4S is one of the quickest cars on the road today. But what this Esprit is really about is its handling. It's an absolute dream to drive, here on the track or on the road.
This is the latest development of this mid-engine rear-wheel drive car. It offers significantly more performance than either of the Elans I've just driven. But it retains the qualities of the other two vehicles in terms of driver integration with the vehicle, the feeling of being in complete control of everything that's happening through the precision with which the car can be steered, turned into the corner, but with much higher grip levels and rates of acceleration.
So Lotus is in a pretty healthy state with cars like this under its belt. But what of the future? You'll have heard and read about the LSA, the car that Lotus claims will finally replace the 7. If the rumours are true, the future in Norfolk looks brighter still.